This happened 3 nights ago. I'm a project manager for a large construction firm, and my job often involves visiting sites in the middle of nowhere. This particular job was a 5-hour haul from home, a long day of reviewing plans and dealing with contractors that stretched well into the evening. By the time I finally packed my tools and laptop into my truck, it was past 8 p.m. The sky was a deep starless purple, and I was exhausted. Not just tired, but that deep in your bones weariness where your thoughts feel slow and syrupy, and all you can focus on is the singular goal of getting home. Home to my wife, to my own bed, home to check on our 2 kids sleeping soundly and safely. The first few hours of the drive were a hypnotic blur of asphalt and high beams. I listened to podcasts without really hearing the words, my mind already at home, picturing the familiar comfort of my front door. Sometime around 11:30 p.m., the fuel light on my dashboard blinked on, pulling me from my reverie. I spotted a sign for a 24-hour gas station a few miles ahead and pulled off the main highway into one of those lonely oases of fluorescent light that seem to exist only for desperate late-night travelers. The air outside was cool and crisp, smelling of pine needles and damp earth. Inside, the station was sterile and silent, save for the low hum of the drink coolers. I grabbed a bitter, burnt-tasting coffee and a bag of beef jerky, hoping the caffeine and salt would be enough to get me through the last leg of the journey. The kid behind the counter looked like he'd been grown in that very store. He was young, maybe 19, with lank, dark hair falling into his eyes and an aura of profound, soul-crushing boredom. I tried to be friendly as he scanned my items. "Long night," I said with a nod toward the oppressive darkness outside the windows. He offered a non-committal grunt in reply. "Hey," I said, pulling out my phone and looking at the map app. "My GPS is telling me I've still got close to 2 hours left. You know this area, right? Is there any kind of shortcut? Anything to shave some time off?" For the first time since I'd walked in, he showed a spark of life. He looked up from the counter, his bored eyes focusing on me. "You're headed east on the main highway." "Yeah, toward the city." He leaned forward, lowering his voice conspiratorially, as if he were about to divulge a state secret. "All right, check it out. In about 10-15 miles, the highway's gonna fork, big time. The main route curves hard to the right. The sign is massive, lit up like a Christmas tree. You can't miss it. But there's a smaller road that goes straight, splits off to the left. It's an old service road, not really on the maps anymore." He tapped a long, pale finger on the Formica countertop. "It cuts right through the state forest instead of winding all the way around it. It's a little rough, you know, but it's straight as an arrow. It'll spit you back out on the west side of the suburbs. Probably saves you a good 40-45 minutes." My tired brain lit up at the prospect. 45 minutes meant being home before 1 a.m. It meant a few precious extra moments of sleep before the kids woke me up at dawn. "Is it safe to drive?" I asked, the last bastion of my common sense putting up a token fight. He shrugged, the veil of boredom descending over him once more. "It's a road, paved and everything. Just, watch out for deer. People use it. People use it." That was all the reassurance I needed. "Thanks, man. Seriously, I appreciate it." I paid for my stuff, got back into the humming warmth of my truck, and pulled back onto the highway. The coffee was already working its magic, and the promise of an earlier arrival had injected me with a fresh dose of determination. True to the kid's word, About 15 minutes later, the junction appeared. A huge reflective green sign pointed right, guiding the flow of traffic onto the familiar well-lit highway. And to the left, there it was, a narrow dark strip of asphalt that seemed to be swallowed by a solid wall of trees just a few yards in. No lights, no signs, just an open mouth leading into pure, unadulterated blackness. Every sensible instinct I possessed was screaming at me to stay on the highway, to stick with the known. But the exhausted, impatient man who just wanted to be home won the argument. With a flick of a turn signal that no one else would see, I turned my truck off the beaten path and into the throat of the forest. The change was instantaneous and deeply unsettling. The smooth, rhythmic hum of the highway vanished, replaced by the jarring, gravelly crunch of my tires on old, cracked pavement. The wide, open sky was gone, blotted out by a suffocating canopy of ancient trees whose branches knitted together overhead, blocking the moon and stars. My high beams could only penetrate so far, carving a narrow, shifting tunnel through a darkness so complete it felt physical, like swimming through ink. The silence, too, was different. It wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, expectant. For the first half hour, it was just me and the road. It twisted and turned more than the kid had let on, and I had to slow down for potholes that were deep enough to swallow a small animal. I didn't see any deer. I didn't see any other cars. I didn't see a single sign of human existence. The unease that had been a small spider on my spine was now a monstrous tarantula, its hairy legs crawling all over my skin. This felt deeply, fundamentally wrong. The kid at the gas station, he'd made it sound like a local secret, not a forgotten path to nowhere. I glanced at my phone. No signal. Of course. I told myself to just push through. Turning back now would be an admission of a stupid mistake and would add at least an hour to my drive. It had to lead somewhere. It was a road, after all. I must have been on it for the better part of an hour when I rounded a particularly sharp blind curve, and my world came to a screeching, rubber-burning halt. My foot slammed the brake pedal to the floor. The truck fishtailed slightly, the anti-lock brakes stuttering violently. The acrid smell of hot rubber filled the cab as I stared, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Blocking the road, from the overgrown ditch on the left to the crumbling shoulder on the right, was a house. I just sat there, my mind refusing to compute the data my eyes were feeding it. It wasn't an old, dilapidated shack. It wasn't a ruin. It was a house. A perfectly normal, if slightly dated, single-story ranch house with pale yellow siding and white shutters. It was the kind of house you see in any quiet, middle-class suburb in the country. It looked like it had been surgically extracted from a peaceful neighborhood and dropped with malicious intent in the middle of this godforsaken road. My first coherent thought was a simple, profane, "What the fuck?" My second was that I had finally broken. The exhaustion had won. I'd fallen asleep at the wheel, and this was a bizarre, vivid stress dream. I reached over and pinched the back of my hand, twisting the skin until a sharp, undeniable bolt of pain shot up my arm. I was awake. I was horrifyingly, impossibly awake. My headlights painted the scene in a sterile, hyper-realistic light. The windows were dark, glassy voids. There was no driveway, no mailbox, no garden. The lawn was just the road itself. A small concrete porch with a single step led to the front door, and the front door was open. not ajar, not cracked. It was swung wide open, revealing a perfect, featureless rectangle of absolute blackness. It wasn't an oversight. It was an invitation into the suffocating darkness within. The predatory silence of the forest seemed to emanate from that doorway, a palpable vacuum of sound. My hands were trembling on the steering wheel. This was wrong on a level I didn't have words for. My flight or fight response was screaming, "Flight!" The plan was simple. Reverse, turn this beast of a truck around, and get the hell out. I didn't care how long it took. I shifted the truck into reverse. That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement in the black rectangle of the doorway. A figure was emerging. At first, it was just a silhouette against the deeper black within. Then, it took a step forward, moving out of the shadows and into the full, unforgiving glare of my high beams. My blood turned to ice. My breath hitched in my chest. My hand fell from the gear shift. It was my wife. It was her. The same height, the same way her brown hair fell across her shoulders, the same slight tilt of her head. She was even wearing the soft blue dress she favored on warm summer evenings, the one with the little embroidered flowers on the collar. I was frozen, pinned in my seat by a spear of pure, unadulterated terror. My brain was a screaming chaos of denial. It was impossible. She was at home, 2 hours away. She was in our bed, in our house, in our town. This thing in front of me was a paradox, a walking, breathing violation of all known laws of the universe. The thing that looked like my wife stood on the single concrete step and smiled. It was her smile, the one that could make my day better in an instant. It was warm, it was loving, it was perfect. She raised a hand and gave a small, familiar wave. "Honey," her voice called out. The sound was flawless, a perfect recording of her gentle tone, yet it echoed strangely in the dead air of the forest, like a sound clip played in a soundproof room. Every cell in my body was screaming. This was a nightmare. This was a trap. The wife thing's smile widened a fraction. It took another step, leaving the porch and planting its feet on the cracked asphalt of the road. "Come on, dear," it said, its voice laced with a playful, chiding affection that made my stomach churn. "We were getting worried. You're late." The word hit me like a physical blow. "The kids are already in their rooms," the creature continued, gesturing with its head back toward the dark, silent house. "They kept asking when their daddy was coming home." The words were a precision strike, aimed directly at my heart. But instead of luring me in, they ignited a spark of rage deep within my terror. It was a confirmation of the calculated, predatory nature of this performance. It knew I had a wife. It knew I had children. It knew what to say. How could it know? The kid at the gas station. Did I mention my family? I couldn't remember. My thoughts were a blizzard of panic. I had to leave. I had to leave now. My hand, shaking so badly I could barely control it, fumbled for the gear shift. And then a light flickered on in the window to the right of the open door. A soft, warm, yellow glow, like a bedside lamp. And in the square of light, 2 small shadows appeared. Silhouettes, one taller, one a little shorter. The unmistakable shapes of 2 children, standing side by side, perfectly still, looking out. My children. A choked sob tore itself from my throat. This was a diabolical puppet show, and I was the sole member of the audience. The sight of those little shadows, so innocent and yet so profoundly wrong in this place, shattered the last of my paralysis. This wasn't just about my own fear anymore. This was a desecration. This thing was wearing the faces of my family, using my love for them as bait on a hook. Adrenaline and a pure protective fury surged through me, a white-hot fire that cauterized my fear. I slammed the truck into reverse, my foot stomping the accelerator to the floor. The tires screamed in protest, kicking up a shower of gravel as the truck shot backward. I wrenched the steering wheel, executing a frantic, clumsy turn on the narrow road. All the while, the thing that looked like my wife just stood there, its placid, loving smile never faltering. The moment the back of my truck was facing the house, the moment my headlights swung away from the scene, it happened. A light erupted from the house. It wasn't the soft yellow lamplight. This was a silent, concussive blast of pure, clinical white light. It poured from the open door, from every window. A brilliance so intense it was like a sun had been born and died in that small fake house. It bleached the entire forest in a sterile, shadowless glare, turning midnight into a horrifying artificial noon. The world was stark black trees against blinding, soul-searing white. I couldn't help myself. I risked a single glance in my rearview mirror. I had to see the truth. The thing standing on the road was not my wife. The light illuminated its true form. The smile was still there, but it was a rictus of fury, stretched impossibly wide across a face that was melting and reforming. Its jaw was unhinged, dropping down to its chest to reveal a maw filled with rows of needle-thin teeth. Its eyes, once the warm, familiar brown of my wife's, were now just bottomless black pits, radiating a hate so profound it felt like a physical force. It was a mask of pure malevolence, enraged that its prey was escaping its carefully set trap. I floored it. The engine roared as I tore down that dark road, fleeing the impossible light and the abomination it had revealed. I didn't look back again. I just watched the terrifying white glow shrink in my mirrors, consumed by the trees and the night, until it was gone. I drove like a man possessed for what felt like an hour, but my clock insisted it was only about 30 minutes. My knuckles were white, my shirt was soaked in cold sweat. Then, through the trees, I saw the comforting glow of electric light. The gas station. Relief washed over me, so potent it nearly made me vomit. I'd made it back. I was safe. I pulled into the gravel lot, the crunch of the tires a welcome, normal sound. I killed the engine, and the sudden silence was absolute. But something was wrong. As I sat there, gasping for air, trying to slow my runaway heart, I realized two things. First, I hadn't passed the junction. The fork in the road where I turned off was nowhere to be seen. I should have reached it before the station. Second, the gas station was deserted, utterly empty. No other cars, no trucks at the pumps. Just my truck, the humming coolers, and the glaring lights. I peered through the large plate glass window of the store. I could see the kid behind the counter. The same one. Same lank hair, same bored posture. But he was still, too still. He was looking down at the counter, frozen in place like a mannequin. I got out of my truck, leaving the door ajar, and just watched him. The seconds ticked by. He didn't move a single muscle. Not a breath, not a shift of his weight. A new dread, a more subtle and terrifying dread began to creep in. This wasn't the end of the trap. This was part 2, as if it knew I was watching it move. Its head lifted. It didn't lift like a person's. It pivoted on its neck with a slow, unnervingly smooth, mechanical motion. There was no humanity in it. Its face turned to look directly at me through the glass, and it smiled. It was the single most horrifying expression I have ever witnessed. It was not a human smile. It was a grotesque facsimile, a wide, predatory stretching of the lips to reveal teeth that were too white, too uniform, too sharp. The eyes above the smile were black, vacant pools, reflecting the fluorescent lights with a dead, soulless sheen. It was the same fundamental wrongness, the same intelligent malevolence I had seen in the face in my rearview mirror. They knew I would run, and they knew where I would run to. The house was the crude lure. The gas station, a place of safety and relief, was the real trap. I didn't think. I scrambled back into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and cranked the engine. I tore out of that fake dead gas station, leaving the smiling thing to its silent vigil in its glass box. I just drove, my mind a blank slate of terror. I was back on the same dark, endless road, heading away from the mimic station, completely lost in a nightmare that seemed to have no exit. Another half an hour of panicked driving, my fuel light now blinking with genuine urgency. And then I saw it, the junction, the massive green sign for the main highway, and beyond it, a river of red and white lights from other cars. Real cars, real people. Just before the junction sat the gas station, but this one was alive. A semi-truck was at the pumps, its diesel engine rumbling. A family was piling out of a minivan. The light felt different, warmer. It felt real. I pulled in, my body shaking so violently I could barely put the truck in park. I stumbled into the store, a ghost in my own skin. The kid behind the counter had dark hair, but his face was rounder, his eyes tired but human. He was watching something on his phone. He looked up as I staggered to the counter. "Whoa, dude," he said, his eyes widening at the sight of me. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." My voice was a dry, cracking whisper. "The shortcut, the road, the left fork." He gave me a confused look. "What shortcut? The left fork? Man, that road's been closed for over a decade. The bridge washed out in a flood. It's a dead end. Doesn't go anywhere." I just stared at him, his words echoing in the vast, empty space where my sanity used to be. "But you told me it's safe to drive, and people use it. I was just on it. There was a house." He leaned on me and whispered, his expression shifting to one of wary concern. "Are you sure it was me who told you that? And let's be clear here, a house in the middle of the road. Buddy, you need to pull over and get some sleep. You're seeing things. Seriously, grab another coffee and just stick to the main highway. It's the only way through." I nodded numbly, paid for a coffee I never drank, and left. I took the long way home. That last hour on a busy, well-lit highway was the most beautiful and comforting drive of my entire life. I got home just before 4 a.m. I slipped inside my real house. I checked on my real children, sleeping soundly in their beds, their small chests rising and falling peacefully. I crawled into bed next to my wife, my real, warm, breathing wife, and I lay there in the dark, shaking until the sun came up. So this is my warning. I don't know what those things are, but they're out there, and they're getting smarter. They built a lure for me out of a house and my family, and when that failed, they had a second, more clever lure, ready and waiting. a place of refuge. They are mimics, so they learn. They use our deepest desires, the desire to get home, the desire for safety, against us. So if you're ever driving late at night and you're tired and someone offers you a shortcut that sounds too good to be true, it is. Stay on the main road, stay in the light, because the things that live in the dark know exactly what you want to see, and they're more than happy to build it for you.